Tsubasa is a miserable virgin bum who got shipped down to the village. However, after enrolling into a new school, his plan to settle into a boring life falls apart because all the hottest baddies on campus become obsessed with pleasing him. It all starts on a cold winter afternoon as Tsubasa makes it into Hokkaido with a cab and admires the scenery. After getting a text from his dad saying he still has work and won't be able to pick him up, he waits until the driver enters his hometown before asking to be dropped off. After assuring the driver that he knows where he is, he gets off, but after a deep breath almost turns his lungs to popsicles. He quickly realizes his mistake and slowly starts walking towards his family home. At one point, he notices that his phone is too low to keep checking for directions, so he keeps it away before seeing a blonde hottie casually risking hypothermia to show off her smooth legs. After wondering how a normal human can be so relaxed in such weather, he finds the courage to ask Manami for directions. When she points out his destination, he thanks her for the help and turns to leave. But then she tells him that it would be stupid to walk all the way there since it will take at least 3 hours. This sends a wave of regret through Tubasa's already frozen spine as he realizes that getting off the taxi was a bad idea. Namani also explains that he might have already become an ice sculpture by the time another taxi comes by. She then offers to help him get home if he can wait to take the bus with her, and he happily accepts. So she asks where he is from. The moment he mentions Tokyo, her eyes light up with excitement, and she asks why anyone would leave such an amazing city to come live in Santa's hometown. After he says the move is for his family, she asks if he thinks of Hokkaido as a lame city, but he claims to actually like how calm it is while secretly thanking God that no one here knows how much of a loser he is. She then asks for his age and gets excited upon learning that they are the same age because it would mean he has to enroll in a local school. While she continues expressing how happy she is, he pays more attention to the fact that her jugs are pressing into his arm until she sneezes and casually pulls out her snot. Sabasa ignores the glaring red flag and hands her a napkin before drifting off into La La Land as he never expected to meet a snow bunny on his first day. She then drops some snow into his jacket and laughs at his response to it until he suddenly calls her pretty. She immediately shoves him back and tries to hide how shy it makes her feel, but the bus finally shows up, so she tells him her name before getting on. As the bus drives off, Sabasa gets a text from his dad and realizes that he forgot to get on the bus with her. While she wonders if they will end up in the same class at school the next day, he introduces himself and takes a seat at the back of class before looking around and getting disappointed that she isn't in any of the seats. Just then, she walks in and excitedly tries to hug him, but the teacher tells her to get a room first, so she takes the seat beside him and calls him by his first name. The shock sends shivers down to his magnum, but he soon forgets about that as the cold turns him into a human vibrator. After he takes a look around and sees that he is the only idiot that came out without a jacket, Minami hands him a blanket and says she usually brings an extra one for days when the cold becomes unbearable. Moments later, he tries to enjoy the warmth like a normal person, but her scent causes him to imagine getting topped off. So he starts fighting to get his mind under control while she starts to think he might be on meth. Hours later, he waits for her to finish talking to a friend before giving her the blanket back and saying thank you. She then starts sniffing it, so he apologizes if he ruined the smell, but she claims to like fat. It smells as if their juices got mixed. After saying that, he has to pay her back for the blanket. She makes him walk her home and asks a bunch of questions about the dating culture in Tokyo. Instead of hiding his lack of experience, he easily admits to never actually going on a date before and asks how they do it. But she says they only visit each other at home because the cold makes it difficult to enjoy a day out. This causes him to imagine getting invited to her place for a cuddle session. But he quickly reminds himself that no 10 over 10 hottie would easily invite someone like him over. Moments later, they get to the train station and she suddenly asks if he would like to come over tomorrow, causing him to start questioning reality itself. Upon seeing that she is actually serious, he agrees to come over, so she asks for his digits before getting on the train. The following afternoon, he shows up to her place and prays to the plot gods for help before ringing the bell. Once inside, he tries to take his shoes off and thanks God that she hasn't tried anything sus yet. But then she tells him to come in quick because they are the only ones at home. Thankfully, his fears subside when she takes him into the living room and explains being the only ones inside means they get to enjoy the heated floors. Just as he tries to get comfortable, she pokes him with her feet and asks if he wants to do anything, but the constant mixed signals leave him confused, so she leaves to get him some yogurt. After taking a sip, he tries to ask about the brand, but then he sees that she got a full load all over her jugs and throws up. As she goes inside to change, he manages to calm the demon in his sword, but she returns with the perfect outfit for sloppy brain and fries his dopamine receptors. To avoid losing control, he shows her a movie he has always wanted to see. So she decides to play it and uses that opportunity to flash the smoothest pair of buns he has ever seen. Minutes later, the movie takes a freaky turn, but Tsubasa's embarrassment suddenly turns to shock when Nanami starts making funny noises while tapping him with her foot. When he eventually sees that she is just asleep, he realizes that she probably doesn't even see him as a guy, which would explain why she is so careless around him. Minutes later, she wakes up and sees his jacket covering her, so he explains that it got a lot colder and takes it back before saying he has to get home on time. After he leaves, her brain finally defrosts, so she runs out to apologize for sleeping through the day together, but he immediately wraps his scarf around her and asks why she would come out without a jacket. He then tries to take off his jacket, but she stops in and decides to treat him to a snack as an apology. After starting the new week by taking a thirst trap selfie, Manami sneaks up on Tsubasa in the hallway and sees that he is interested in the upcoming winter festival. She then decides to go with him, and he tries to act like he never wanted that until the ice in his brain melts enough for him to realize that she just set up their first date. The day before the festival, Minami joins her sister and mom for lunch, and when they both start making plans to go skiing, she passes up the offer and sends a text to remind Tsubasa of the meetup spot for their festival date. Upon seeing that, she also sent the selfie from before. His IQ points drastically reduce, but he resists the urge to simp and tells himself that she probably just invited him because her friends are busy. At the train station the next day, she shows up looking like what Xenia would be if she had enough estrogen. And Tsubasa realizes that he is treading dangerous waters by being around such beauty, so he immediately starts a random conversation to avoid staring in her eyes for too long. As he starts yapping about all the things he has heard about Hokkaido festivals, she tells him to lower his expectations. But when they eventually arrive at the festival, his excitement increases a lot more. Upon seeing a huge ice sculpture, he tries to get a picture, but she tells him to stop acting like he was born in the 90s and pulls him close for a proper selfie. After her scent makes him delirious, he begs her to delete it, but she refuses and suggests getting something to eat before the stands run out. While he immediately goes to order a corn dog, she gets a kebab and waits for him to come back before asking for the first bite of the corn dog. As she immediately gets into position for him to feed her, he considers pulling out the corn dog in his pants before feeding it to her, and realizing that she just gave him an indirect kiss. After he takes the second bite, they spend the following hours trying out every ride and game before eventually taking a break for hot chocolate. When he starts another yap session to express how happy he is, she admits that his reaction to the festival was unexpected because she has only been to the festival once and never thought it was actually a big deal. After getting up to thank him for helping her see that Hokkaido is actually a really dope place, she slips on the ice, but he manages to hold her up and almost gets his first real kiss. Unfortunately, they both choose to disappoint you creeps looking for goon material and continue talking about other festivals on the way home. During lunch at school the following week, she shows up at his table and says she got something for him to try before bringing out her cup noodles. When he asks why she wants him to try it, she reminds him how he kept acting like a caveman who just had his first taste of real food at the festival. After pouring in some hot water and preparing it, she shoves a whole portion down his throat and waits for him to glaze over how good it tastes before saying that it's payback for the corn dog he fed her. This causes him to blush as he remembers how she looked in that moment, and she starts teasing him for getting excited over something so simple. When she asks what he brought for lunch, he opens up a bento box that looks like it was made by Wolf Gangpuk, and she immediately starts a photo shoot. So he asks if she wants a bite. She then proceeds to eat the juiciest meat and asks if she can marry his grandmother when he says she is the culinary mastermind behind it. After classes that afternoon, he thanks her for the cup noodles and says that everything they have done together is a new experience for him. Upon hearing this, she asks him to explain. So he tells her that his life felt like a Matt Rife comedy special until they first met. This causes Manami to say that his family is definitely loaded. And when he asks why she would think fat, she explains that he has always acted like he was born in a test tube and grew up with zero contact with the outside world. Tsubasa still claims to have never felt like his family is rich, so she asks to come over and her chest balls cause him to forget how to say no. While walking home several minutes later, he wonders how his folks will react. But then she suddenly climbs into a snow fort and tells him to come inside with her vanilla buns pointing right at his face. He quickly turns away and tries to decline, but she pulls him inside and starts making funny sounds while he desperately tries to keep his sword under control. Just as he finally pulls out of the fort, he sees his grandmother staring at him with a horrified look in her eye, as she now thinks he likes to get freaky in public. Leak fat isn't enough, Minami grabs his arm and asks if he pulled out because it was too tight. Upon realizing who Candy is, she expresses how excited she is to meet the genius behind Sububasa's meals, and continues glazing without realizing that Ken is seconds away from losing it. When she asks for the kind of relationship they both have, Tsubasa quickly says they are only classmates, so Ken reminds him of an appointment they need to get to and wishes Mommy a safe walk home. As they both walk off, Tsubasa accepts that his amazing life in Hokkaido has finally come to an end. But Minami shows up again and asks why his grandmother is using an umbrella. When Ken asks if she can't see the snow, Manami explains that using an umbrella is actually dangerous because she could slip and get seriously injured like her grandmother once did a while ago. After Ken closes the umbrella, Manami also says the path they're taking will lead to a very slippery road and offers to show them another route before grabbing Ken's bags. Tsubasa then collects it to act like he has home training, but he also notices that Manami is upset over the way he denied their friendship. So he leans in and whispers that she is very important to him. This immediately brightens her mood, but that only serves as a warm-up to the shock she expresses when they finally reach the mega mansion he calls home. As she turns to leave, Ken tells her to at least wait for tea and realizes that she has gone soft while pouring out moments later. On the way to serve it to them, she starts to consider accepting Manami as his friend. But after seeing that she has turned their guest room into a photo studio, she changes her mind. Just then, she notices the smile on Sabaz's face, and it reminds her of a time in the past when he had the exact same smile while talking about his dream of becoming an important person in society. So, she decides not to do anything that might cause that smile to go away. In class the following day, the teacher passes their arrangement for an upcoming ski lesson, and Tsubasa sees that he has been paired with a purple-haired chick named Suri. On a bus later that week, Manami clogs Tsubasa's ears with a never-ending rant about how she can't wait to show off how good she is at skiing. Due to having an ego the same size as a newborn hamster, Tsubasa easily admits to being a little scared. Though she promises to take care of him before shifting her focus to Sorai. When she tries talking to her, Sorai acts like her existence is irrelevant. So she takes a moment to accept the brutal rejection before telling Tsubasa that she's been trying to become friends with Sorai for ages. This surprises him as he initially thought they had beef, but she further explains that Sorai has always been a snub, so he asks why she is so desperate to get close to someone that probably hates her guts. When she carefully explains how much of a baddie Sorai is, he decides to take a good look at her but ends up making Manami jealous. At the ski resort minutes later, the teacher gives everyone a bunch of instructions for their safety before they split up into groups for the lessons. As Tsubasa tries to figure out his next course of action, the teacher asks if he would like to join the group with the easiest lesson, but he decides to practice walking around with the ski first. So the teacher tells him to stay with Sorai as she also has no clue how to ski. After promising to check on them from time to time, the teacher leaves and Tsubasa figures that it would be the perfect opportunity to speak with Suri. The moment he says hi, she puts on her earbuds and starts walking off. He then decides to follow her lead and easily figures out the walking part before seeing that she slipped. Just as she gets back up, Minami flies in to remind Tsubasa that she will always be better, but the teacher immediately calls her back to the group. So she leaves while he wonders why such a talented baddie likes to keep him around. When Sorai suddenly asks if they are dating, he gets surprised and immediately explains that she only likes to tease him. Sorai then goes to talk about how Minami has the perfect life. But as soon as he notices the intense jealousy pouring out of her, she returns to her loner state and walks off to avoid talking any further. While Minami goes on to help a boy learn how to ski properly, the teacher eventually gets back to Tsubasa and apologizes for abandoning them before saying they can take a break since everyone else already finished theirs minutes ago. Moments later, he decides to go eat in a cafeteria to avoid an awkward moment with Sorai. But upon realizing that he left his chopsticks, he makes his way back to the bus just in time to see Sorai wiping down her soft jugs. After immediately closing his eyes, he apologizes and swears to tell absolutely no one. But as he turns to leave, she stops him. Minutes later, she takes the last bite of her food with a sip of water before saying that she has always had a sweating problem. She further explains that being so insecure about it led to a painfully lonely life as everyone had started avoiding her. As she takes a moment to convince herself that telling him wasn't a stupid decision, he asks why she would easily confess her darkest secret when they barely know each other. After saying that, it's mostly because he is a nobody who wouldn't have the balls to tell anyone. She admits that talking with a fellow loner made her feel comfortable. Just then he hears a notification from her bag and notices the sudden embarrassment on her face, so he promises not to listen if it's an important call she has to take. After giving it some thought, she pulls out a gaming console and immediately starts frying her brain, causing him to get curious as he never thought she was the gaming type. When she tells him what the game is, he asks what it's about and this causes her to get shocked, so she asks if he has ever played a game before. As soon as he says no, she hands him the tablet for his first attempt, and he fails miserably in a matter of seconds. While trying to teach him the basics, she gets a little too close and barely notices until she sees him blushing. However, he tells her not to worry, but she cleans her sweat again before explaining how she has always struggled to maintain relationships because people have always found her intensity a bit creepy. He then claims to love how passionate she is about gaming and asks if she can keep giving him lessons. Despite clearly losing her senses to his she keeps up the baddie act and says he has to call her professor if he really wants it. After he agrees to call her professor, she helps him get his first win within a couple minutes before he realizes that they have spent too much time on the break. Moments later, he tries to ski again, but she tries to talk him out of it. So he suggests taking the tram to the top so they can use gravity to their advantage. Just then, Manami starts wondering where he is and gets shocked upon seeing them having a casual conversation. However, their conversation turns out to be everything but casual as Sorai gets scared and asks why he even bothers scheme when he doesn't have the slightest clue how to. He then explains the instruction he got from the teacher, but she only gets intrigued when he says that Manami's adventurous personality is a big reason why he wants to keep trying new things. When she asks if fat is why he became her number one S, he denies having any feelings, and she goes on to admit Fat Nanny has actually always been nice to her, but her insecurities always make it seem like she has ulterior motives. As soon as they finally get to the top of the trail, he makes her promise to speak with Miam if he makes it all the way to the bottom without crashing. She reluctantly agrees but says he has to go with her. So they both start skiing together and he carefully explains all the steps before making it to the bottom first. The next moment she starts asking how to stop, and he realizes that he never told her, but Manami shows up to help and explains a safe way to fall so she won't get hurt. After they both safely get to the bottom, Tsubasa runs over to make sure Sarai is okay, but the teacher starts yelling at the both of them. So he tells her to stay back so he can take full responsibility. As Manami then makes a joke about how serious he always is, Sarai apologizes for always ignoring her, and that causes our blonde-haired dummy mommy to become as red as a stop sign on the bus. Several minutes later, Manami gets upset at the both of them for not talking to her while they dive deeper into snooze. The next day, Tsubasa tries to stay home to avoid the blizzard, but Ken tells him that risking death by hypothermia is the only way to prove that he has what it takes. So he thanks her for the pep talk before heading out. Moments later, he regrets that decision while slowly turning into an ice sculpture. At a certain point, he starts thinking about Manani's resistance to snow with the hope of getting some motivation before hearing a car honking behind him and falling into the snow. The next moment, he sees her face and thinks it's his brain giving him one last dose of happiness before he croaks. After her yelling brings him back to reality. She pulls him into the car and her mom tells him to get comfortable. But upon seeing the huge racks on her chest and her deadly face card, he starts wishing she was his mommy instead. When Manami reveals he is the trust fund virgin she keeps talking about, Mei says she should get more makeup done, but Manami quickly reminds her that she is still married. Mei then asks if he has a girl back in Tokyo and he overreacts as usual. So Manami tries to give him the usual shove, but he starts whining and complains about still being sore from the ski lesson. After she promises to not be so rough with him, Mei uses that opportunity to joke about how Manami could definitely take him for multiple rounds. Manami immediately tries to stop her, but she continues yapping about how good they look together until Manami gets pissed. Moments later, she asks Tsubasa if he has ever experienced so much snow before. So he explains how people back in Tokyo would probably think the ice age is back, and says he actually expected to see a lot of people outside since they are all used to it. After they both remind him that people in Hokkaido still have regular human bodies that would freeze up in such weather, Manami asks if she can get a job so she can buy clothes and make up for the winter, but Mei refuses. As they both keep talking about it, Tsubasa realizes how close they are and starts thinking of how good they already look before letting his thoughts slip out again, causing them both to turn red. When they finally get to school, he thanks Mai for the ride and she offers to take in any time since they live a couple minutes away. As he then leaves the car, Mei stops Manami to commend her on pulling a hot human ATM before she also climbs out and runs into campus with him. Just as they get to the hallway, Manami spots Sarai and immediately runs into her for a hug. But after she falls against the wall, Tsubasa asks if she is also sore and they both end up talking about it while Manami gets jealous. In class, a couple minutes later Manami notices that Tsubasa has finally bought his own sweater and blanket, but she says he might need something else and proceeds to open her jacket. He initially thinks she wants him to nose dive into milk, but she shows him the heating pads on her shirt before handing him some. After he thanks her, she looks through her stuff and realizes that she is out of lipstick. So he offers to escort her to the store after school, but she gets shocked upon hearing a bit of Hokkaido in his accent. As soon as she says he is actually becoming a true Hokkaido local like her, Yuri tells him not to think Manami acts like the average Hokkaido local. This surprises the both of them. So she starts with the two biggest points she carries around every day, and further explains that Manami has a lot more talent and personality than the average person living in Hokkaido. Just then, Tsubasa notices that she brought her tablet. So he asks her lessons, and while she hides how good it makes her feel, he tells Manami about his agreement to call her professor in exchange for gaming knowledge. Manami then promises to do the same and begs for gaming lessons as well, which causes Sarai to get emotional before accepting. Immediately after school, the girls take into the mall for a tour before Sarai gives Manami her first gaming lesson. Shortly after that, Tsubasa goes to take a leak and Manami uses that opportunity to yap about all the makeup she wants to get, until Suri suddenly apologizes for always being mean to her again and says she is an amazing friend. When Tsubasa finally gets back, they go on to spend the rest of the evening shopping and finish off with the photo shoot. Later that night, Tsubasa gets started on an assignment and wonders if they are supposed to summon it before or during class. So, he decides to ask Manami, but she sends the first text to tell him about her bubble bath. The next moment, she sends a pic, but he ignores the perfect chance to create a FeetFinder account and only comments on her toy. So she sends the second one to show off her jugs. She then waits to see if her thirst trap worked, but once again he acts like he barely noticed. So she calls him and he finally puts on the expression she was looking for. After turning the screen down to protect his mind, he tries to have a regular conversation. But as soon as he mentions the assignment, she jumps out of the water in shock and says she hasn't even started, but her phone slips and reveals every inch of plot. At the same time, his phone also slips as he tries to check on her. But when he finally catches it, she turns the video off and makes sure he didn't see anything before saying goodnight and promising herself not to take stupid risks again. At a karaoke place later that week, Tsubasa and Suri both get shocked by how good Manami is at singing, while her friends try to figure out why she is so addicted to the one song she always picks. After Tsubasa says he has only been to karaoke with his family, Suri tells him that she usually goes by herself, and he immediately starts acting like there is nothing wrong with having the social skills of a rock so she doesn't feel bad. Moments later, Minami's friends try to help them pick a song, but she gets jealous of how close they all are and wedges herself in between them to pick the song. After hours of singing together, more of her friends show up, and the guys all start talking about the upcoming exams with Tsubasa, while Sorai gets a little better at talking to other girls. Just then Minami comes across a Pinterest board for chocolate, so she reminds them that they are only a couple days away from Valentine's Day. As everyone starts talking about chocolates and the usual stuff, Tsubasa wonders if she will get him a chocolate. But then Matsuo suddenly tells Minami that he will be expecting her homemade chocolate. After they all start talking about how she usually makes a bunch of chocolate for everyone in class, Tsubasa feels a little less concerned as he no longer has to worry about not getting some. Suri notices this, but when one of the girls suddenly asks if she will be making chocolates for anyone, she says the money will be better spent on her games. If you loved this anime story and want to know what happens next, drop a comment below and I'll make part 2 just for you. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.